Welcome to Two Mediums and a Large. My name is Lara.
I'm Robbie.
And I'm Heather.
We're here for episode 2. Thanks to those of you that tuned in to our first episode. We're so excited to keep this growing. So,
I
without
think one thing
further
we should
ado,
mention
let's
too
get into
is
it. Hmm?
I think one thing we should mention too is that we got an email saying that our podcast last week is in the top 75 in Canada for spirituality. So that's really cool. I was
Yes,
really
that
excited
was
about that.
huge for the first few days. I don't know how
Yeah.
these fluctuate, but it was definitely, no matter what, a huge stepping stone for us. So
Yeah,
I love
I
that.
agree.
Thanks for
I do
everyone.
too.
Yeah.
So how was your ladies' week? Did you have a good week?
My week could have been better, sickness running rampant, but it was overall like a decent week. There's ups and downs all the time. What about you guys?
Heather?
My week was good. It was Canadian Thanksgiving, so I definitely ate my face off, probably more so than I should have. And my beloved Blue Jays, they lost against the Seattle Mariners. Mariners? I might be saying that wrong.
Turner,
So I was
I don't
kind
know
of
why you're asking
disappointed.
me.
your team, come on.
I love sports. I love
That's
sports. So I was
great.
kind of disappointed with my team, but who knows? We can always have a comeback. I'm always for the underdog, so I'm rooting for us today. Go Blue Jays.
Oh, good luck. Yeah, my week was pretty good. It's funny how when you start getting into alignment and you start being the person that you want that you need to be rather than the person that you think other people need you to be, it's amazing how things just start falling into line. I've had a problem with that lately with I think we talked about it last week about being somebody that I thought other people wanted rather than who I actually was. And when I started waking up and realizing this is just who you are, things really started getting better. So I think that's great. And I think
I
that
think
kind of leads in. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think that when you start falling into alignment, things actually just feel easier. You feel excited, right?
Yeah, you do. Because you get out of this mind space of everything's happening to me, right? Rather than everything's happening for me. And when you start looking at it in that direction, it kind of makes you feel a little bit better about what's going on and where you're going, right?
I think
I
so
think that
too.
kind of,
Oh, sorry, Robbie.
go ahead, Heather, you're good.
I was just gonna say, I think too, because that you're fully stepping into that full authentic self, and that's such a high vibration. Like for me, that's almost on parallel with divine love. Like those are two things that are very high in the vibration scale. So I feel like when you fully step in and fully embody that vibration, things are just naturally going to come to you, and things are just naturally going to work out. Everything's going to fall into place. It's so much easier. It's such a you can totally create from that space. It's quite magical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also letting go of the need to control things, right?
Oh,
Just
it's
trusting that
huge.
things are happening for the right reason, and that's hard
Yes.
to do. As humans,
Hmm.
that's hard because we want to control everything.
Can we talk
Right.
about how hard it is to maintain this though? Because like sometimes you fall into alignment and then all of a sudden you fall out of alignment. And it's easy to tell when you're in alignment because things start flowing. Like all of a sudden you'll just have like this surge of good luck. Things will just start feeling easier. You will feel excited. You will feel happy. And then you may wake up the next day, have like one bad moment, start to victimize your moment, and then all of a sudden you can move out of alignment for days, weeks. It's like, even for those of us that are aware of like, we live our life by like trying to be in alignment. I don't think most people live their life thinking we need to be in alignment. They just live and they do, and they go through their like, uphills and downhills. But for us that like we really focus a lot on like we know when we fall out of alignment because the vibration's different, the way opportunity comes is different. I think that we need to talk about the fact that it's not easy to stay in alignment. It's like you have to continue choosing your truth. You have to continue to create your authenticity. And for us, especially like we do a lot of social media things, it's really hard to kind of keep that vibration high all the time. Like we can increase our frequency, right? That's how we do, readings and mediumship, things like that. But it's hard to keep a consistent basis on that. So if anybody's like projecting that they, you know, are always in alignment, I think that's pretty hard to say because we're still human. We still are gonna, kind of struggle with our egos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How have you guys found that?
No, I agree. I can go for weeks and probably not that long at a time being in alignment. And then one thing hits me and I'm down for months. And it's not just thinking about all the things happen to me, but then you start worrying about, oh, I'm on alignment. How do I get back into alignment? And now you're focusing on getting into alignment and not understanding that just focusing on not being in alignment is keeping you out of alignment. So it's like this huge
It's funny,
cycle.
right?
Yeah, it's this huge cycle that you have to work through. And then finally, when you get in alignment, you're like, great, I'm here. And you enjoy it and don't worry about when's the next hit coming, right? You just enjoy it and do it while you can. But inevitably, we're human and that hit's going to come. But you're right, social media, it takes a huge toll on you sometimes. I don't think people realize how much it's not really, I mean, damaging, yeah, but it really can hurt your self-esteem and self-confidence sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
For
Heather, what
there's
sure.
about you?
up and coming, mediums, and there's a lot of mediums that have been out there for a long time and just struggling in general to be in your truth and to always be like putting yourself out there, despite what people may think or say. It's hard, yeah, and it can make you feel small sometimes. But I think the most important part is like we continue to pick ourselves back up and continue to put ourselves out there because we trust in what we're doing, right?
Yeah. Heather, how
Mhm.
do you feel about that? The alignment.
It's hard to maintain, but I feel like strong boundaries are really important here. So it's like for me, it's like who am I letting into my life? What am I watching on TV? What am I listening to? Because I think all of that plays into it. I really try to keep my vibe high, and
What am
we're
I
human.
eating?
We're human. So I mean, I feel like that's part of the experience. You're going to have the ups and you're going to have the downs. That's just part of the flow of life. So I feel like I've worked really hard on creating the safe harbor within, like when I get into, I want to say a panic state because I'm pretty even keel, but when things fall out of alignment, I go right back into meditation, go right back into sitting with the soul and then expanding that energy out because that's your foundation. So I feel like a lot of people, and I see this in readings a lot, where a lot, and I had to learn this the hard way, which we'll talk about later, but I really feel like if your foundation is strong, you're going to be able to weather the storm really well. So I've just really, when anything gets out of alignment, I go right back into meditation and come back to my center and get realigned that way. But it's, I mean, there's so many things like the news and social media and like interpersonal relations with people and your husband or your kids, like there's always so much going on, so it can be quite overwhelming for people, but that's why I always teach people the foundation is what's most important because that's what's going to keep you steady.
Okay, so
I
for
don't
you,
disagree with that.
meditation, just kind of recentering, making sure you're shutting off all the external noise. Um, and like I said, nobody realizes, but the foods we eat actually can throw us off, right? Like if I'm
Mhm.
really like binging on, junk food for the week, I can really notice the difference in like like it makes you feel like almost cloudy, like you just feel low energy and all that stuff. So that also goes into it. And I think a lot of people don't realize, yeah, the foods we consume, what we basically allow into our lives that is, not of the highest vibration, we're going to struggle to have clarity and to move into our creative energies again.
For
Yeah.
sure.
You know, and the meditating thing with Heather, I absolutely agree. You have to have that foundation, you do. But I know myself and a lot of people out there that are listening too, they get to this point where they're unaligned and they can't even align themselves enough to meditate. It's like, I'll put it off till later, or I've got this that I need to worry about, or this I need to do. So in that case, then what do you do? What kind of foundation do you have? And it's just, uh, I guess why I'm saying this is I want people that are listening to understand that it's okay if you can't get there. It is. It happens to us, but just trust that it's going to happen. Trust that you'll be able to get that foundation back. You'll get back into alignment. It's hard. It's really hard.
I've
And
had
I think what's that, Lara?
I've had moments like that where, I just get caught up in my everyday life. I have two kids. It gets busy and the schedules get busy, and frequently I fall out of alignment. And it's really hard to bring yourself back into it. And I think that a lot of people kind of struggle with that too, is like maintaining their foundation for their spirituality and what makes them feel good, right? Because we get busy in our day-to-day lives between work, between family, between, whatever it is that we get caught up doing. So I think this is a good conversation that people can really benefit from learning how to kind of fall into alignment and recognizing when we're out of it, and how this can really help us further our development, right?
I think that leads into kind of what we want to talk about in our personal development, and that is shadow work, and a lot of people look at it and you talk about shadow work and it just scares them, right? The word shadows in it. So they think this is evil. This is dark. I don't want to do this. You're working with the devil type of thing, and it's really important to distinguish that the shadow is important. Those repressed unknown qualities or um, shame, guilt, things that we've done in the past, things that we've said, the ways that we think that we don't let other people know, even ourselves sometimes. We don't admit that we think that way. And it can affect your life when you don't recognize it. So I think one of the things that I strive to do in the work that I do is help people understand that their shadow is there. It's going to be there, but also help bring it to the surface and help them integrating it. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that? What do you think the purpose of integrating a shadow is?
Well, I think the purpose of integrating your shadow is that it gives you perspective on what you've been through in life, that you are not defined by like the hurt and the pains that you've been through. It's like you need to recognize as this is a part of you, as well as like the good part of you, right? And you have to kind of merge it and have respect for that version of you that's been through those things. And I think a lot of people aren't really sure exactly what shadow work is and what it means and why it's important to do it. And I think that we should touch base on that as well, because for people that are just starting in their development journeys that might be tuning in, they might struggle to be like, well, what is shadow work? How do you approach shadow work? And the thing is it's very personal for everybody, but it's about starting to look at those inner wounds, right? That are really deep within you, and really just looking at them instead of looking at them from an emotional standpoint, just observing what that was. And I know that that can be really hard for people because, it's kind of hard to be objective when something has triggered you and happened to you. But starting to notice, like, if you have anxiety and this starts coming up, start to really sit in meditation and ask yourself, why does this hurt? What is this triggering in me? Where does this come from? Like, really just trying to observe what those feelings are. And the thing for shadow work is things will come up consistently. And the first little bit of shadow work I noticed, it was like, a slew of issues that came up that I had to work through, like, almost simultaneously. And as time went on, I wasn't doing it as often, but we're still always going to be doing shadow work. And then you'll think you healed something, and then all of a sudden it might come up again. And you're like, wow, I thought I healed this. Right. So I don't know how it's worked for you guys, but that's been my experience in it. Yeah.
Heather, what about you?
Just want to say too, like what just commenting off what Lara just said, I feel like things will come up again and again and again because that's what I've noticed with my own journey. But I feel like each time I come up against it, it doesn't seem as deep. So that's how you know you're transmuting that. So I want people to understand, don't get discouraged when something keeps coming up in your life. It's coming up for a reason. It wants to be revealed and healed. And maybe there's a little bit more work to do. There's a little bit more shadow to uncover. But as you progress down the journey, what I've noticed is when I come across those same things, I don't get as triggered anymore. So
Yeah,
that's how I know I've transmuted it. Um, which is where you want to be.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I agree completely. There are so many ways that the shadow can appear too, that take you off guard. One of the big ones for me is projection, is somebody saying something to me and I just getting completely upset. And when I think about it, I'm like, I get upset because I say that to other people, and now I'm upset because I'm thinking about how much have I hurt those other people? Or, for instance, you may be I mean, I'm not saying this is me, but it's just a thought I had. You may somebody may be telling you something and lying to you. And you think, God, I would never lie to somebody like that. And then the more you think about it, you're like, yeah, but I have. I have lied to
Mm.
people like that. And that is part shadow as well, understanding that you're projecting what you are onto other people and you're seeing that. You're actually seeing that part of you. But I think something to address as well is that shadow isn't always negative either. You can have some shadows that are positive that have been buried. And, example of that would be like the power to say no. Sometimes, I mean,
Yeah.
that is a powerful positive thing. But a lot of times we bury that in that shadow in our shadow because we've been taught you shouldn't say no. You
To
should
be
just
polite.
helpful and be nice to people. So I think uncovering that and saying, oh, I can't say no to people, again, that is bringing up a part of your shadow self and integrating it, and understanding, yeah, yeah, I can. The one thing I think about integration as well is why it's so important. Um, and it's kind of like Lara said, it's so that you can understand that this is who I used to be. This is what I used to think. This is what I used to do, and not forget it. Because, there are some things in your life that you just cannot forget, traumatic experiences, memories that maybe set you on the shadow. Not forget about it, but learn that when you think about it, it doesn't have to trigger you in the ways that it used to. And I think that's a really important way to integrate as well.
Yeah, I think those are some, great insights, and that can help a lot of people in really starting to address what's going on with them. I think that it's hard for us to even recognize sometimes what is the shadow coming out. Like you said, these triggers might come, they might be good triggers. And I think that sometimes they may come up because maybe we looked at them in one perspective, maybe there's another perspective. And as we get older and we start to grow, we really become aware of these things and we start to catch them sooner than instead
Yeah.
of burying them too, right? Like I know that there's things that I know are about to trigger me and I catch it. I'm like, okay, how can we, integrate this into a positive way and start to learn about it? But, you know, it still gets us. It still is always gonna, get us. We're like, we have so many years ahead of still like learning and we're gonna have, trauma start to come up. And the fact that we have started this and it's been, I didn't start shadow work till in my development, right? So I don't think a lot of people start to think about shadow work until they're developing. But if you're going to be developing, mediumship and things like that, it's important because you're not going to be a clear channel and understand your messages until you start healing all of that, right? And so this is one way that I know if my readings start falling flat or they start falling off, I know that there's something that is kind of needing to come to the surface because I know I'm not being a clear channel too. So that also is a way that I can kind of recognize and then I'll sit in meditation. I will start to look at it and sometimes it may last a couple of weeks where I'm kind of like that. And I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back and I need to really address what's going on in my personal life because it's hard to maintain, you know, you want to be a consistent medium all the time. But I think it's fair to say that we all, even professionals, will have their moments where they aren't feeling as clear, where they need to take a step back, they need to rest. Like we are not perfect. We do our best, but it really can affect the reading if you are not feeling, clear from your triggers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Heather, do you have any ideas, Heather, or comments?
Just that I totally agree with everything that Lara just said. I've experienced that myself where I've gone through periods where I have amazing readings and then I have times where I, fluctuate and then my readings are not really where they need to be. I kind of have high standards. And I feel like for me, that's one thing I've battled in my shadow is perfectionism and always wanting to be perfect and forgetting the fact that I'm human and that I'm here to have a human experience. And it's okay to not be okay sometimes. So I just want to make that okay for people because you do have to sometimes take a step back and really just take care of yourself. And I feel like a lot of people hold a lot of stuff in. I see this a lot with women. We try to put on that tough face, that tough exterior, that nothing, gets through the concrete wall. But sometimes we need that emotional release. And it's okay to have those moments where, you're not, okay, and you need to take a step back and just kind of recalibrate for you. So I just want to make it okay for people. If you are going through something, don't ever feel like you can't take that time for yourself because that's actually how you're going to be able to continue to give to others is when you really take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes makes us good at what we do, especially when we're dealing with somebody that needs quote unquote healing, because I know I've been through a lot in my past and I have wounds that a lot of people don't have, but a lot of people do. And I think when I'm talking to somebody and I'm reading them and I can see, oh, they've got this same wound that I do, it helps me get on a level with them so that they know I understand their pain. They know I understand what they're going through and that I can show them how I got out of it to maybe give them the chance and the hope that they can get out of it too. You know, a lot of healer, it's better to heal from a floor than it is from a pedestal, right? If you can get down with somebody and heal with them at their level rather than healing at them, it helps a lot. Not saying you still can't do it if you haven't experienced that, but people, they don't want perfection. They want the truth. And sometimes just being truthful with them and honest and saying, I've been here and let me tell you how I got through it, that helps them more than anything, just to know that they aren't alone. So
Mhm.
I think that's important for people to know too, that, no matter what it is you're going through right now, dealing with your shadow or things in your life, you may feel completely alone, but there are people that have gone through the exact same thing and you'll make it through. You will.
So you guys both work in energy healing as well. So how does this affect energy healing, shadow work, and how do you recognize this with the people you're working with, right?
Yeah, Heather, do you want to comment?
So what I've noticed just like from myself, working on myself and then working on people too, I feel like a lot of times what I pick up on is distortions in the energy field. You'll feel like I did a reading the other day, and there was a lot of chaotic energy that was just sitting in the field. And this person had, experienced some, traumatic things. And I just want to say that too, in mediumship, sometimes we have to deal with things that are a little bit heavy. So it's very important, again, that you have that solid foundation to be able to deal with the things that, can come up in readings. But I feel like a lot of times I just see it as a distortion. It's almost like there's like a heaviness in certain areas of their body. So if I'm doing like a scan, like I want to say a visual scan, but a scan using my third eye. So I'm intuitively looking at the energy centers of someone. I'm going to see that the energy center isn't flowing as well as it should. So that will usually tell me that there is a distortion there and something that needs to be cleared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm lucky in that when I work with a lot of people, I'm able to channel their chakras and understand, yes, there's distortion there. What is the distortion and how did it happen? And there are a lot of things that, sometimes we see that we don't even talk about because it's like that's not something that needs to come up right now. That's not the important thing that is going on. Um,
Mhm.
but when you see that, it's important to understand and gain people's confidence, right? Because they've got to understand that you're very confidential about what you see and what you bring up and what you do. Um, but yeah, I kind of see it like that. And then I just, let the energy go where it goes, where it needs to go. We talk about it. You know, a lot of times when I'm doing energy sessions, my guides will tell me, you've cleaned this out. Now let's put in this affirmation in the chakra. And they'll give me an affirmation. I'll embed it. And that does help, because that's one thing that I've learned in my practice is that you can get rid of things, but it leaves a hole, it leaves this space. So you've got to fill it with love. You got to fill it with affirmations. You got to fill it with something positive to help them get through it. But I don't I put healer in quotes earlier because I don't really like being called a healer. I am a healing facilitator, I guess, because
Yeah.
I think when you say healer, people get a lot of misconceptions about that, about, oh, you're going to fix my problems. And I think that's what people need to understand is that it doesn't matter how much energy work you get, how much Reiki, how much Sekum, how much Qigong, whatever. If you are not willing to work on yourself, on the problems that are brought up, it's not going to help. So
So
that's why I
you're
like
like
to
a
be called,
helping hand in it.
yes, a helping hand to help bring it up, to give them the energy to help deal with it when it does come up. Um, but fortunately, most of the people I've ever worked with understand that and agree with it, and it really works well for them.
Yeah, I love getting, some healing exchanges and just, having somebody help me bring those things those things to the surface, sorry. Because yeah, sometimes we bury it deep and we just really need a helping hand in bringing that so we're aware of what's, going on internally. So thank you
And I
for
think
Actually, just
energy
want to,
workers, go
oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I totally agree with everything you said. And I myself also see myself as a facilitator because I don't like that term healer. And I'm very much about, and I'm sure you are too, about empowering people to take charge of their own lives. Like you
Yes.
can do this on your own and you can heal yourself.
Right. And that's why I like to teach them a lot while I'm doing the
Mhm.
sessions. You need to protect yourself. You don't know how, well, let's stop and do it.
Yeah.
To ground yourself, you need to do this. And I think that, and I'm not trying to, I don't know anybody personally like this, but I've heard of people that, will say, well, that's a problem, and I'll teach you how to do it for $100 more. That's not the way
Yeah.
I work. It's all part of helping them heal themselves. And I think one thing as healers, and even you know the work that we do, sometimes it's really hard to do that work on yourself. So it's nice to find someone to trust that you can go to and say, hey, I need some work done. Can you bring something to the surface, because there's something that I can't figure out is going on, and I need your help with it.
I
And yeah, for instance, just a couple of weeks ago I had somebody bring up something that I didn't even think would be an issue. And I'm just going to bear all and be vulnerable here. But um, growing up, my mother worked, 2 and 3 jobs to take care of us. And as soon as I was old enough to get a job, I got a job, and all of my money went for the bills to make sure my mom didn't have to work 2 jobs, and she didn't. She was able to work one at that point, which I was very happy to do for a while, until you get to a point where, like, okay, I don't have any money. Here I'm a teenager, I don't have any money, I can't do anything. So we kind of adjusted that. But anyway, um, and this thing that came up, it was guilt. And I couldn't guilt from my childhood. And they said it wasn't really the guilt of anything bad. It was the guilt of not being able to take care of my mother more growing up. And I thought, oh, I never would have thought that that would have been a block for me, or something that was holding me back. But once I learned it, I realized, okay, that's right. And I'm starting to integrate it so that I can get past that and move forward. So sometimes these things that come up aren't necessarily horrible things. They're things you never would have thought of that are keeping you from moving forward, because you just can't get over this instance in your past.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I also think it's really important to, um, when you are picking a practitioner for, energy healing or mediumship, whatever it is that you are seeking help on, that you find somebody that you really trust and resonate with, because it can do more damage than good if you are just getting a reading done by every single person, whoever's offering, or whoever is offering even like the most affordable rates. Because like, there are amazing mediums that don't charge much, and there are amazing mediums that do charge a lot. But it's important to remember that, like, if you are getting a reading just to get one instead of looking for somebody that truly resonates with you, you may end up causing more damage, or, having these conflicting kind of opinions when it comes to your reading. And it's really sacred, because you think that you're working with the spirit world, right? And then you're connecting with somebody else's energy. And there's not a lot that you can hide from your energy healer, or your the person that is reading you mediumship wise, or psychically, because we are picking up on your energy. So we're able to tune into the traumas that have happened to you. We're able to tune into all these things that we're picking up on. And that is such a vulnerable, raw experience between the two of you. And so often, you're sharing one of your deepest, you know, sadnesses with this person. So it's important to trust who you were connecting with, instead of just getting a reading done by, people, every other day, just a different, reader. Because I find there's a lot of people that, they just want to get a cheap reading every other day. And I would just advise against that, because it's okay if you want to get a reading, but you got to give yourself some time to integrate with the information that's been given to you. And you got to give yourself, some time to really trust in the person you are connecting with. So, anyways, I just wanted to kind of give my spiel on
That's
that.
interesting you brought that up, because I think that brings up another question that I've faced a little bit is, how do you feel about, I mean, I love it when people come to me repeatedly. But when they say, "Hey, do you know of another reader that I could go see?" You know, how does that affect you? Personally, it doesn't affect, I think it's great because to me, one, I have no monopoly on anybody, right? So if they want to go see multiple readers, they can. But two, I also think that there may be information that I have and I can't get the other information, but that other reader can get that information, but not what I got. So it starts putting together a puzzle piece. But I do think, Lara, I agree with you. Sometimes it's not in the best interest to get a reading every day because when you get conflicting reports every day or things just aren't the same, you just start
Yeah.
you start second guessing yourself.
I mean, I'm always, everyone's biggest cheerleader. If there's somebody that I can't work with, I'll send them to Heather, something like that. Like, I'm always open to that. Especially if like I really know the reader and I trust them and I trust that they are going to, have good ethics when it comes to giving the readings. Um, but I'm not bothered by it on that scale. It's just more so for the sitter that's going to be, the recipient that's receiving the messages, that you want to make sure that they are going to be in a better headspace, not conflicted with, different information. And I find that there, it's not often, but sometimes you encounter the odd person that, doesn't work in the best light, and you just want to make sure that you aren't just connecting with people just to connect. You want to trust in who you're connecting with, because
I
we're
agree.
connecting with your soul, not just with your physical body. It's raw and it's emotional, and you want to be feeling better after it, right?
Yeah. What do you say, Heather?
I just want to say here, I think that actually shows that they really value and trust your opinion. Because I feel like, and I know from my own story, like I've gone to other readers and it's nothing personal against any of those people. It's not that they're not good enough or they didn't give me what I needed at that moment, because they surely did. It's just sometimes you want like a different perspective. And I think like
Yeah,
you get that from seeing different people. But I feel like if someone was to approach me and say, "Hey, do you know someone?" And I know I've sent people to Lara too, um, where I mean, I feel like they value your opinion enough that they would trust who you would recommend. So I actually take that as a compliment.
I
Yeah,
do
same.
too, you know.
Yeah.
And I would like to just point out here that neither one of you said you referred anybody to me. Okay. I just wanted to point that out so that people here understood that they caught that.
I'll have you know, I have talked about how amazing, you were to help me get back into alignment when I was kind of going through,
Yeah,
you know, the hard
you
moments
did.
of life. So I have, I mean, they'll come, I guess, when the time's right and they're
Yeah,
ready.
the time's right. The time's right. No, I'm just messing with you ladies. I think I think one thing that makes us good healers though, getting back to that, is that it's kind of like this wounded healer archetype, right? Is that there's always at least one wound that you can't heal, right? You can't heal. You just, as much as you try, it's hard. It's hard to heal that wound. And you kind of wear it on your shoulders, not really for attention, but for communication. So people see that and go, okay, there's somebody there that knows what I'm going through and can help me. And I think that's, we were talking about seeing other readers and everything. I think that's something that's important for anybody in this to understand, is that just because someone doesn't come to see you and get a reading from you or a session doesn't mean that it don't take it personal. It just
Yeah.
means that they don't click with you. And more than likely, you wouldn't click with them either. Because
Yeah.
there have been some people some sitters that I've read for that I'm just like, I won't do this again because I do not like this energy and we just do not click. And I'm sure that there are some that have read with me that have thought the same exact thing. No matter how good or bad the reading was, I just didn't like his energy. And that's okay. You don't have to like everybody's energy, and that's part of boundaries, right? And understanding where you can and cannot go. So I agree completely.
Yeah, I feel like people get almost like offended. If you were to say it, they would be offended if you said like our energy doesn't click, but it's so common. Like, you're not going to click with every single person. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or I'm a bad person. We're just not like a good match here.
Right. We're not compatible. And sometimes, you get that feeling and you're like, oh, I'm just going to ignore it because they seem like a good person. And then you get weeks or months into this friendship and you're like, yeah, I should have listened to myself because this just keeps getting worse and worse and
But
worse.
there's the lessons that you need to learn in it because now
Yep.
you've learned I should have trusted my
Yep.
instincts.
Should talk to my instincts. When there's a red flag, follow it, right? So
Right.
that's the point we can make from there.
So I always
Yeah.
tell people, I'm like, sometimes with mediumship, it's like going on a date, you know? And you see them and you think they're cute and they think I'm cute, but there's no chemistry, there's no spark. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay, right? Because
Yeah.
May go
you're not
from like
everyone's cup of tea. It's okay.
you might go from like one rating that like, you're not clicking, and then the next rating you get along great. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
And that's okay. But too, I kind of like seeing different readers sometimes because like I'll see somebody that brings up something personal that, hey, you need to work on this, or this is what I see in your life. And the next one was saying, hey, this certain guy is trying to get your attention and you're not listening to them. You know,
Mm.
um, it's kind of what Lara called me out on a while back, but we won't go into that. Hey, these guys are trying to tell you something, you're not listening to them. So, I mean, those are two different types of readings, and I enjoyed both of them. But two, I think that's too why sometimes people get multiple readings from different readers because they want the different type of information.
Yeah. Everyone has something to bring to the table, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not
Yeah.
at all.
I totally
In fact,
agree.
I think it makes us who we are, right? We're all different.
Hmm.
As much as we're all the same, we're all different.
Yes.
Lara, do you have anything to add?
yeah, no, I think we touched on a lot of good topics here, kind of just getting into shadow work. And, we have so much time to talk about all these amazing topics. We're looking forward to, having a guest on the show and, let us know maybe in the comments of, one of our Spotify or our Apple on what kind of topics you guys would like addressed, right? Like,
Yeah,
I think that's a
I,
good
I
idea.
yeah, I think it is a good idea because a lot of times we have questions and we just have nobody to ask them to, or nobody that cares enough that will give you an answer. So this is that forum. If you have questions that you want to know, do we deal with this? Or what does this even mean? You know, send them. We'll answer them as best as we can. You know, I won't lie about them. Maybe. I don't-
No, we're all about truth here, right?
Right. Exactly. It
I
was
love
it
you
was great.
guys.
It was great seeing you guys again. I love you too.
Seeing you guys too. Do you guys just want to let everybody know your socials? Um, Mine
Sure.
is on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. You can find me under Medium Lara Sisson. What about you guys?
Yeah. Robbie, you can just go to pandahearts.com or on Facebook, Robbie Alexander or Panda Hearts Intuition. Um, just Panda Hearts, search it, you'll find it, add it, you'll be great. Heather?
And you can find me on Instagram as the no filter medium and on Facebook as Heather Page. I'm just in the process of redesigning my booking website. So I will have that for you guys next week.
All
Yes,
right.
and we look forward to, talking about, these topics, once a week, tuning in and just getting to know you guys and you guys getting to know us. So thank you guys for joining our second episode. We'll see you guys next week.
Okay. Bye.
Adios.